So now I would like to introduce you to Kelly Pretty. By day, Kelly is a volunteer trustee and also a project manager at the West Auckland Resource Centre, looking after the zero waste and sustainability part of what they do there. She's a creator, an educator, an artist, and a gardener, and that's just what I managed to find on the internet. So I'm sure there's a lot more to you as well, Kelly. So I will pass over to you now, and I'm really looking forward to this workshop.
Awesome, thanks Juliet for a lovely introduction, and welcome. Thanks for coming along today. I'm a little bit nervous because I haven't done a webinar for quite a while, an online workshop. So, but please feel free to ask any questions, and I'll try not to go off on a tangent, which is quite possible, but yeah. So, I love beeswax wraps, okay? I'm just going to show you a few ways that I use them. So, I put them over top of my jars. So, this is to keep my nettle tea, okay? So, I double it up like that because it is fabric, so it's breathable. So I've actually got that like folded, so it's 4 times folded, so I'm not letting any air in there, but they're great, things like that. Our normal like sandwich, which is what most people know about beeswax wraps, sandwich wraps, okay? Which are ideal for that. But I think I got really into them when a friend said to me, oh no, I don't want to do that workshop because I don't eat sandwiches. And I'm like, oh, but there's so much more to beeswax wraps than just sandwiches. So then I made her one, and one of my balms, and so I wrapped presents in them, okay? And so this is a really good way. So in the bathroom, I just have my moisturiser wrapped up in the beeswax wrap, and it's really, yeah, it's really easy, okay? And then for any of our leftovers or covering bowls, every time we go, like, we need to bring a plate, it's always covered in beeswax wrapper, okay? I don't even have sad wrap in the house, so I can't say it's because we want to get rid of sad wrap or cling film or glad wrap, but that is definitely number one. They're great presents. I'm always making them because I'm always giving them away, okay? And so I tend to keep the ones that haven't quite worked in my house. Okay, so that's beeswax wraps. And let's get on to what we need. Okay, number one is fabric, and it has to be cotton. Okay, it has to be 100% natural, because if we're using a synthetic fabric, well, that's oil from the ground, and we don't really want to wrap our food in oil, which is what we're doing when we use cling film or sad wrap. Okay, and also it can be like, this is really, really thin. So this is like a batik fabric. This is like a quilt maker's fabric, and this is a standard dressmaker's fabric. So when people ask how much ingredients do you need, there's no standard answer, because every fabric is going to react differently. Okay, so it's very much a creative way of making, okay, rather than like, right, measure 1 teaspoon, measure half a teaspoon. Okay, so we need beeswax wax. Now we have a multitude of ways that wax comes in. We can have it in a block, okay, and if we have a block, then we need a grater. It comes in these lovely little pellets, and then I use these a lot for workshops because they're quick, easy, and melt really well, which is these tiny little pieces. I get these from Pure Nature. Okay, now the only thing that you absolutely have to have is the beeswax and the cotton fabric. Okay, the other things are optional. So jojoba oil, the reason for jojoba oil is because it has a really long shelf life. A lot of other oils will go rancid very quickly. What the jojoba oil does is it makes the beeswax softer. Okay, but if you don't have any of the things, just use the beeswax. It's just, you're going to know it's going to crack a bit. Okay. The other thing that we can use is pine resin, and what the pine resin does is it makes it sticky. Okay, so if you don't have pine resin, that's fine, and if you have allergies in your house, I'd say avoid pine resin. All you have to do is you actually end up making your beeswax wrapper bigger, okay, because it's not going to stick to your container. So you just make it bigger. Okay, the resin makes it sticky. Cool. So if you're going to do the iron method, or actually all of the methods, you need baking paper. Okay. So they're all our ingredients. You need scissors so that you can cut your fabric. So we're going to start with that. I like the snip and rip. Okay. So what snip and rip means, and look at what you're making it for, okay, to what your size you want. So I cut this one out before. This is a circle, which will go on that blue container, okay, so I made it bigger than that. If you want for sandwiches, it's going to be bigger. If you want like for your moisturizer bar, it's going to be little. It's up to you what size. Often we make them square, so I'm just going to fold that there. So snip and rip, which is what you can do with all natural fibres, and it means that you get a nice even, whoop, I love it, a nice even edge, okay? Now all of these little threads, they can go in the compost or the worm farm because they're 100% natural, okay? Right, so I've got some old tea towels. I keep these tea towels, and it all comes off really easily in the wash. So I've got some old tea towels that I like to put down because I don't really want it all over my bench. It's harder to get off the bench. Okay. I've got a piece of baking paper that I put down. I get my piece of fabric. Now, it's, if you can tell what's the right side of the fabric, which is where the pattern is, and the wrong side is the other side, put the right side facing down, because that's where we want the stickiness, on the wrong side, because that's what we put on our bowl, or we put our pieces together. Okay. Now, if your fabric is bigger than the brown paper, just do another one. Okay, so we've got two there. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to put our beeswax on. Okay, so you sprinkle it. Now, if you have the block, remember, we'll just grate it, and the nice way to do that is just to grate it straight on. Now, I always say less is more, okay, because we can always add more, but it gets really messy if you put too much on at once. Okay, I don't particularly like the Grater method because I find it hurts my hands really quickly. Okay, so I find these little ones good, or these ones here, rocks here. So I sprinkle it all around. Hopefully you can hear me. Thumbs up.
Yeah, we can hear you really well, Kelly.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, and can you see that? I'm just giving it a cover all around. Hopefully you can see
we
that.
can. Yeah, it's a good view.
Okay, so I used two pieces because my fabric's quite big. Now I put another on top. Okay, put it on top. I've got my iron on. I have it set at the higher setting. Okay, cotton, and then I press down, and I just like ironing. This is my favourite method because I think because I'm such a visual person, I like being able to see what I'm doing. Okay? So it's definitely my favourite method. Okay? But if you don't have an iron, then there's plenty of other methods. And this is a nice method to be able to do at home as well. Okay? So I'm watching it, it's all melting under me. Okay. Oh, beautiful. And depending on your fabric is how long it will take to soak in, okay, and how much it's going to take. Okay. This is sort of a medium fabric, like that batik that I showed you. It's just seconds and it's completely soaked. Okay. You can see it really easily that it's melting, and then you'll start to see that these areas that aren't looking saturated. Okay, so I'm going to hold it up like this. You might be able to see here. You can see these bits. So that means I need some more beeswax onto those areas. Okay, so just peel that off. And I'm going to sprinkle some more into that, those corners there. You sort of start with the iron, you start from the middle and go out. Okay. Oh, it's smelling very good in here. Very, very good. Okay. So I'm going to cover that again. Off we go. This iron is great. I paid $5 for this iron at the Waitaki transfer station. And it just needs a bit of tape, but it's been a wonderful iron. So even though I don't iron my clothes, I do a lot of ironing with my workshops. Okay.
Kelly, we've had a few people join later, so if you've got a moment, do you want to recap what you did before this point?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so we started with our what we needed. Okay, so a piece of cotton fabric, and it has to be cotton because it needs to be a natural fibre, no synthetics. The best way to tell if it's cotton is you take a little bit of the thread and burn it with a lighter. If it turns to dust, it's a natural fibre. If it melts, it's plastic, or it's got synthetic in it, plastic in it. Okay, and then we chose our beeswax. So beeswax comes in like little pellets like this. Smells absolutely beautiful. In a block. If you have the block, you need to grate it. Okay, and then also these little pellets. Okay, which I find really good for doing the wraps. Okay, so we put the fabric down and we put it right sides down, facing downwards. Okay, so we're doing the work on the back of it at the moment. Okay, and then I sprinkle it. And I was mentioning how there's no exact rule, so it's not like 1 teaspoon of this, half a teaspoon of that. You could try that, but it will only work if you get the right fabric for that quantity. Okay, so it's much more creative. So I just sprinkled it all over there, but do less because you can always add more, but you can't take it away. Okay, now then you put a layer of the brown baking paper, and I use this because it can go on my compost, because this is the whole thing is like a zero waste. Everything can go back to the earth. Okay, so it's all melted now. Hopefully you can see that. So that's step 1 with the iron method. Okay, now I'm going to peel my paper off, because now I'm going to put some of the oil on and the resin on. Okay. So remember, all you need absolutely is the beeswax and the cotton fabric. Okay, this is all extra. So I'm going to put about a teaspoon of the jojoba oil, and I just sort of sprinkle it over here like this. Now this makes the whole wrapper more pliable. Okay, if it's just the wax, then it tends to crack. Okay, now I've got my paintbrush. This is very thirsty fabric. I've never done this fabric actually. This was from my neighbour, and it's beautiful fabric. But when I say thirsty, I mean it's taking a lot of ingredients. Okay, so I've given a coating over the whole bit there, and now I'm going to take my pine resin. You buy pine resin, it's in like a block, and then I've got an old spice grinder that I use for creative things like this, and turn it into a powder. Okay, rosin or resin. I used to put it on my violin bow as a child. Okay, so we just give it a sprinkle. Now this is what makes it sticky. Again, you don't have to have this. Okay, I'm going to give it a sprinkle, and then I'm going to put my paper back on, get my iron out. And I'm giving it one last go. So it all melts in. So that resin is now melting in with the beeswax and the oil. Okay. Oh, delicious. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the whole thing. Okay. So I get the heat on the other side as well. Okay. Have we got any questions? Are we all good? Hopefully I've explained that to the new people that arrived as well.
There's no questions through on the chat, but yeah, feel free to ask questions either aloud or in the chat. If you want to ask a question, you can just unmute yourself and say, Kelly.
Yeah. Now, what happens here is we have to work quite quickly. So I'm going to keep ironing while I'm talking because it dries really fast, the beeswax, okay? And so we want it to be really fluid, and it's kind of hot. So be careful if you've got like little kids picking these up. But so we're going to peel off our paper quite quickly, okay? And peel it off, peel it off like that, okay? And now I've got my first beeswax wrap, okay? So we just put that down to dry. I'm going to sit there, okay? So that's method number one with the iron, which is my favourite method. I really enjoy that method. Now, the next method we're going to do is in the oven. Okay, we've got two oven methods. I'm going to use this really small piece of fabric here, which is the batik, and it takes the beeswax, it just goes with the beeswax, okay? Now, it's pretty much the same. I'm going to sprinkle this on here. Now, I'm using the same piece of baking paper. You can use this stuff over and over again. There is some old wax on the side. I can just get a knife and scrape that off, okay? So I've got my oven on. A lot of people say only do it at 100 degrees. I crank mine up a little bit more and do it at 160. Okay? With the oven though, you need to be really keeping an eye on it. Okay? So I've given it a sprinkle all around. I haven't gone right to the edges because you'll see we'll bring it out and use the paper. Okay, now oh, whoopsie. Okay, so here's my oven tray, and I'm just going to lift this onto here, okay, and pop it back into the oven. So at this stage, I've only got the beeswax on. Okay. So what I'm going to need for the next stage is my jojoba oil and my pine resin. Okay.
Hi, Kelly. Oh, sorry to interrupt. Hi, look, I just had a question. What's the benefit of melting the beeswax first instead of combining it, like doing the beeswax, the jojoba oil and the pine resin together versus
like
separating it?
Like that? That's a wonderful question. I'll just show you.
Yeah, sure.
Because I love disasters, because it's how you learn. So can you see that big yellow mark there?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's from putting the resin on at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I find is when the beeswax is nice and melted, then I can sprinkle on my resin and my jojoba oil at the same time and mix them in with the paintbrush.
Okay. Yeah.
And then that will give me a much more even finish.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's more about the staining rather than the, I'm just trying to, An even finish. Okay, I think I understand. That's cool. Yeah.
Because I'm going to show you another method too, where
Okay.
we actually mix it all together.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, that's
Yeah.
cool. Okay.
But when you put it directly, or this is just what I found, when you put it all directly on there when it's cold, it doesn't move around.
Right. I understand. Yep. Okay. No, that's cool. Thank you for that.
Right. I'm going to, sorry about the smoke coming out of my oven. Okay. So that's only been in there a couple of minutes. And that wax is completely melted. Okay. So now I'm going to put on the jojoba oil. Now this is a much smaller piece of fabric, so I'm going to do about half a teaspoon. And if you remember, the reason why we use the jojoba oil is because it's got a long shelf life. It won't go rancid. Okay. And at the same time, I'm going to now sprinkle my pine resin all around. And if you can see, it's kind of dissolving straight away, the pine resin. Let me see that. No, you can't see it at all on there as the powder. And then I just brush it so that I'm getting a nice even coating. Okay. Right. And I just lift it up, and that's another one done. Okay. This is a really good method if you're doing quite a few. Okay. Now some fabrics, and this is done there, sometimes some of the dye will come out. Okay. This is the last piece of this fabric, and I had a huge amount. It's the first time I've seen it do that. Okay. So that's that one done. Settled. Okay, so this is our first one that we did. Okay. And that's all ready to go. Beautiful. Okay. Because that's decided, I'm going to stain it. That's going into my compost. Okay. Now, method number 3. Okay. I'm not sure who asked the question before, which was a really great question. But another thing that we can do is we can combine the beeswax, the oil, and the resin, okay, together. Then you melt it down, and make it into a block. Well, I made a whole lot of it into a block. There is a recipe that I followed for this from Pure Nature, but I put the amount of pine resin in, and about 3 hours later, it still hadn't melted. So I pulled the excess out. So I would, if I followed that recipe again, which I will, I'd put half the amount of pine resin in, because it felt like it got saturated, and then it was just like this giant piece of caramel. Okay. Now, when we do that, what we do, in the little metal container, and it cleans up really easily. Okay, so I put and it was 1 to 2, the ratio of the beeswax, and we have hives, so this is beeswax from our hives. So just block in, and the resin and the jojoba oil, and then you melt it down like this. Okay, can you see that, everyone? Okay. So I've got water in my pot, okay, underneath. Then I put my pot inside. So that's called double boiling, okay, or bain marie, double boiling. Okay. Beeswax has quite a low flammability rate, so you've got to really keep an eye on it. I have once had a fire because I forgot, and it ran out of water in there, and then I went to put water in there, and a bit dropped in, and the oil caught on fire. So you've got to be really super duper careful. Okay? Right, so we melt that. So for this method, grab our piece of fabric. Okay, put it right side down again. Okay, this is a really, really good method if you're going to do heaps. I did 20 the other day for our volunteers at the resource centre, and so it's a much more efficient way of doing it than with the iron. And we're going to do a little bit of fundraising for our scouts, and I think we'll use this method. Okay, so I'm brushing this melted mixture on. Okay, it takes a wee while to do that preparation part, but now whenever I need it, it's just there. I made a really big batch, and the way that I get these blocks is just putting them into a silicone muffin containers, and then they go solid and you pop them out. So it's really good. Some. Okay. Just brushing that all over. I rather like this too because I like paintbrushes.
I have another question.
Oh,
Hi,
yes,
Kelly.
please.
Thanks for that other tip. That's cool. I wondered, I've noticed in the stores they have this sort of reusable silicone mats. I wondered if that could replace the compostable baking paper, or is that it would work or ruin them? Or okay.
Well, it's not
I
something
mean, I
that
guess it's to try anyway.
totally
Yeah.
try, and
Okay.
I can be a little bit wary sometimes of new products. And I'm a little bit wary of the silicone.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
there's no reason why it wouldn't work, because it would cut down on, I mean, you can reuse and reuse and reuse it. It's not ideal to be taking something that's only used for a short amount of time.
Yeah, sure. Okay, no, that's cool. I thought it would be worth trying, but I thought I'd just ask as well.
Yeah,
cool.
Nice.
Thank you.
Right. I'd love to know if it works.
Okay.
And it's the best thing is what you've already got. You know,
yeah.
Totally. Thing. But if you've got one, go for it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No worries. Okay, so can you see that painted on there? Hopefully, yep. So I've painted on that mixture. Now I put it back in the oven just for a couple of minutes, because I was painting on one side, and what the oven then does is let it soak right through into the other side, okay, of the fabric, so that entire fabric soaked. Quite like the sound of that. Okay. Oh, I'm going to turn off my iron. Leave that for a few more minutes. See how this is coming off? Okay, it's kind of peeling off there. And then this one here has had a rinse under water, because that was something that I read, is that after you've finished them, you give them a rinse under cold water. And I don't know why, but you can see the difference. Okay, same method, done at the same time, but it sticks much better. So it's a really good trick to know, and it's just giving it a slight rinse, okay, under the water, and then it's like they come alive. Yeah.
So thank you everybody for coming, and thank you so much, Kelly. You honestly did such a lovely job of showing us all those different methods, and you've made it seem very doable.